Welcome to Better with Art. I'm Melinda, and I'm here to encourage you to reclaim your creativity and establish a healthy habit of creative self-care with one small art prompt per week that can be done in an art journal or on paper if you don't have one. And this week we're starting things a little differently because we're just starting with paper to do a project next week in our art journals. You can use just about any paper you have. You can also use the craft acrylics, which is what I used when I did similar projects to these last year. These are what I already had out, and they are in my typical limited color palette when I'm painting tissue paper for collage. And you can approach this any way you'd like, but if you would like to use a limited color palette, choose something from the red family, yellow family, and blue family, and you can also add a white and a black. I don't particularly want to deal with tints. I want to keep more vibrant colors, and for my black, I usually use Payne's Gray. So this week, we're just painting some paper, getting it ready for a couple of options next week. Last year I did Eric Carle inspired cutout collage as well as a quilted effect meant to represent ourselves. I have some cardstock that was left over from cleaning off monoprint surfaces and my brayer. I have a piece of printer paper that was a printer calibration test, and an envelope from junk mail opened up. I think before I go any further, I am going to make my paper pieces smaller, so I'll be more likely to remember to keep any patterns and design on my papers small. Fine, because we will be making this into smaller pieces to collage in our art journal. And our art journal pages are not very big. For the quilt project, and I will link to both of those videos I mentioned in the description. For that, I asked people to think of colors and design elements that reminded them of things or themselves, that represented them. For the Eric Carle project, if you've ever looked at Eric Carle's books, it was more of just color and texture. And if people wanted a guideline, it could be an Eric Carle inspired animal or object, natural element. And as I will probably do a little bit of both next week, I'm just going to play, and that's what I encourage you to also. But again, these will be made into smaller pieces to make up other things. I tried to track down the video I watched of a woman doing an abstract painting and sharing a color mixing process. One that may be particularly handy if you're not working in a red, yellow, blue family palette. When you're working in red, yellow, blue with the black and white, all of your colors, most of your colors, should end up sort of harmonious because they're created with the same color. But even in that, you can have some that just don't look quite right together, and you would never guess that they came from the same group of colors. And when you're working with a different limited color palette, this color mixing tip makes so much sense and is so helpful. And it is to add a little bit of your dark each time you create a new blend. That way they always have the same undertone. So I might play around with that a little bit. I know I'm going to want lots of greens. And I was teaching an upper elementary, mid to upper elementary homeschool group class recently. And we were doing color mixing, and I got into talking about how the tints make sense to me, but shades, adding black instead of white, sort of confused me, because when you add white to something, I can see that it's that color, if you will. When you add black, you can end up with something so totally different, like green. And I know I'm working with Payne's Gray, which is a navy blue, but if you've never mixed yellow and black together, yeah, you should try that so you can see what I'm talking about. It will be similar to that. I do know I'll want lots of greens. Well, I got too much blue there to get the vivid green I was going for, but this is an awesome color also. So I'm gonna throw some down here. Oh wow, that is gorgeous. Yeah, I'm gonna have trouble making little designs because right now I'm just having fun playing in color. Add some more yellow to get closer to the grassy green I have in mind. That is not what I had in mind, but I love that, and I love these. And yes, this does have a little bit of the Payne's Gray in it. Your dark color doesn't have to be black for this limited color palette color mixing tip to work. You just have to be sure to add it to each blend. Doesn't have to be much. I should get a different implement than just the brush because I'm just ending up with the same type of strokes. Of course, I can use the end of the brush. Ooh, that was kind of fun, rolling it like that. Well, that's yeah. So having little sections with different types of marks in them and designs will be good for both options for our upcoming project. I think I'm going to add a little tiny bit of water to that. It's feeling a little thick. And I realize I neglected to tell you what colors I'm working with. My 3 basic colors for my limited color palette for my tissue paper collage, for my translucent collage, I don't just use tissue paper, are quinacridone magenta, cadmium yellow, medium hue, and phthalo blue. I'm just getting such gorgeous colors. I'm not even playing with design, so as I said, I like working with a red, yellow, blue because with it I can make any other type of color I would like. So this has absolutely no rules, so just have fun. And you don't have to worry about what you're going to do with your papers next week, because we'll make it work. Sometimes we just need to play. I'll put a link in the description to various tools I'm using. This one is just a silicone pastry brush, which came from a local dollar store. So I won't be able to give you a link to the exact one. but if you prefer to order something from Amazon, they will have plenty. And I'll look for a suggestion. So I started with red, yellow, blue, and of course, so with it, I can make my green, I can make my purple. Of course, varying shades. That is gorgeous also. As I said, I love working with these 3 colors. I find them vibrant and they create such gorgeous colors when blended. I like the lines when you drag it this way as opposed to the other way. Let's see. Of course, the end of paintbrush handles can be good for adding designs, for pushing, for mark making, which I guess I was doing a bit of there. All right, go play. I'm going to play. I'll come back on camera, show you things I've come up with. I'm sure there are little fun techniques and mark making I can show you, but right now my mind is kind of blank and I just want to paint. So you just paint too. Okay, I decided to turn the camera back on relatively quickly because I thought maybe I would do something interesting that would inspire you to do something interesting. And you can also watch the progression through still kind of awkward mark making, trying to get my groove, and then me finding my groove. Not the look I had intended going for, but I was just loving color. I'll just turn on some music, and if you're the type of person who likes to watch process, even at 4 times its normal speed, this is for you. If you are feeling inspired to make some of your own art, give me a thumbs up. Share with someone else who needs to be encouraged to reclaim their creativity and practice creative self-care. And be reminded that taking time for art is not a waste of time. Subscribe. I will be back next week with the rest of this prompt to put in your art journal. And it's still in the 100 days of the 100 Day Project, so I will be back Wednesday with 7 more collage papers and a daily My 100 Collage Papers short. Make art, friend.